Hey friends, it's me, Amy Rebecca, your internet bestie for all things personal development, intentional living and dream chasing. And yes, I filmed last week's video and this week's video back to back, and I'm still very sniffly and snuffly and my sinuses don't feel so great, so please bear with me. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different kind of video. It's going to be a bit more introspective. It's going to be more of a chilled out kind of chit chat where I am sharing some of the most impactful lessons and best life advice that I wish I had known when I was in my 20s. Because fun fact, today, the day that this video gets released, is going to be my 33rd birthday, and I'm going to be on a mountaintop in Dubrovnik sipping on some Prosecco and living my best life. And I always get quite introspective around the time of my birthday. I always like to kind of take stock of what I've learned, what have I achieved over the last year, and what am I going to do moving into the next year to make it even better. And even though the life advice that I'm going to be sharing in today's video is stuff that I wish I had known like 10 years ago or more, the sooner the better. Even if you're not in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s, this is still practical life advice that you can apply at any time in life. So cheers. It's not quite Prosecco yet, but let's get into it. One of the most important and impactful lessons that I learned in my life that I wish that I would have learned 10 years earlier was that your worth is not defined by the way that other people treat you. Unfortunately, there are going to be times in life when people treat you badly, whether they are dismissive or condescending or rude or hateful or spiteful or cruel, or they make you feel bad about yourself in some way. They go out of their way to just make you unhappy. And you might find yourself wondering, what did I do to deserve that? Or what's wrong with me that that person is treating me that way? Like, what did I do? And the truth is, the way that other people behave and act is completely to do with them, regardless of whether that is a friend who lets you down, or a partner who does not treat you well, or someone at a workplace or school, or a family member who is unkind or just doesn't treat you in a good way. That is not a reflection of you, that is just a reflection of them. Honestly, either they just suck as a person, and there are just people out there who are just purely bad people, they're just not nice people. Or maybe they have some kind of issue that they need to work through, some kind of insecurity, some kind of issue within themselves that they are projecting onto you. For years, I let other people set the precedent for how I was willing to be treated and just kind of went with the flow with it. Like, if they were going to treat me badly, I kind of just accepted that that was how I deserved to be treated. If people weren't going to show up for me, I would assume that was because of some kind of defect in myself, that I didn't deserve to have people show up and be there for me. But that's not the way it should work. The way that other people treat you should never define the way you feel about yourself or your self-worth. And you should set out with standards of, this is how I deserve to be treated, because I know I deserve respect, I know I deserve love, I know I deserve happiness. And if people can't meet you there, they don't deserve to be in your life. Do not let them drag down your self-perception or what you're willing to put up with to meet them at a lower level because they are crappy people. Their actions are nothing to do with you, they're everything to do with them, and you don't need to lower your standards to align with them. The second thing I wish I had known earlier was that you don't need so much stuff. I often think that if this was a lesson I had learned way earlier in life, I would be in a significantly better financial situation now that I am in my 30s. Because I used to be the kind of person who would go shopping for fun, and I'd buy things that I didn't need just because they were on clearance. I'd stock up on stuff. 1 wasn't enough, 2 wasn't enough. Like, ooh, I like the smell of this candle, I'm just gonna buy it without thinking, even though I have 25 more candles at home that I've never even opened. Overconsumption has become so normalized, and I mean, it was bad 10 years ago when I was in my early 20s, but now with influencer marketing and things like TikTok Shop, where you don't even need to leave the app to spend money and buy stuff, it's so much bigger of a problem. It's really easy to fall into that trap and get into a cycle of just buying and buying and buying. But when you do that, it's never going to lead to actual true contentment. What happens is you just get stuck in this dopamine cycle of short-term gratification, and ultimately it doesn't make you happier, it doesn't make you feel better, because you just end up with too much stuff and it's taking up space and it's stressful because you can't find anything, and you open the wardrobe and stuff falls down on top of you, and you're late for everything all the time, and there's stuff all over the floor, and it's very overwhelming. And that's before we even get into the financial implications of just constantly buying new stuff day in, day out. And the thing is, you just don't need it. You don't need to buy everything that you see that you like. And actually, you will be so much happier without all of that stuff cluttering up your life. Okay, the next one sounds kind of boring, but it's not. Stick with me. It's that compound interest is truly your best friend. In my early 20s, I had no financial literacy. None. And that really set me up for a lot more hardship than was necessary as I moved throughout my 20s. But even when I started to budget and I got into saving my money and I really learned how to manage my money more effectively, there was one area of finance that still really eluded me, and that was investing. Investing seems like such a scary thing for so many people, and it can seem like something that's really unobtainable and almost like a rich person thing, like something that I wouldn't possibly need to worry about. Like someone like me doesn't need to start investing. And even if you wanted to, it's very off-putting because it seems very complicated. I didn't start educating myself on investing until I'd already turned 30. And this is one of the biggest regrets of my life, quite frankly, because of the way that compound interest works. The more time you have, the bigger the payoff. So I'm going to give you an example that I have written down here to really illustrate how huge this is. So for example, if you start investing £100 a month when you're 20, and we're just going to say, for the sake of this example, that the average return on investment is 7.5%. By the time you're 60, if you've been investing £100 a month starting when you're 20, you are going to have £304,372.11. Ballin'. But if you don't start investing that £100 a month until you're 30 and you skip those 10 years, then by the time you get to 60, you're only going to have £135,686.70. So it's a big difference. And obviously, part of that discrepancy is going to be the fact that for 10 years, you're not paying in £100 a month. But the £100 that you are personally putting in is just a drop in the ocean compared to the amount of compound interest that you will make over the course of those 10 years. So let me show you. So if you start at 30, investing your £100 a month, by the time you get to 60, the amount of compound interest, so that is not money that you have put in, that is money that you have earned from having your money invested. So the amount that you will make in compound interest would be £99,586.70, which is nice. That's almost 100 grand of like free money. But girl, if you started at 20, then by the time you get to 60, you will have made £256,272.11 in interest. And even if you can't afford to put in money every single month, put in whatever you can and just let it sit there. The key with compound interest is time. So if you can start investing it from the moment you leave the womb, that would be ideal. And I'm not saying girlies in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, that doesn't mean that you should write off investing either. I think everyone should be investing where possible. But if you are watching this and you are in your 20s, girl, I'm gonna need you to do what I wish I had done. Start investing. If I could turn back time. Yeah, honestly, every time I think about how much money I have lost through not knowing that earlier, I want to throw up into my own lap. So on the back of that quite depressing note, actually, my next piece of advice is that it always gets better. Whatever it is, it won't last forever. Heartbreak, loss, loneliness, sadness, depression, the worst time of your life is only temporary. And knowing that doesn't necessarily make that time easier to deal with. It's still going to be painful. It is still going to suck. but sometimes just knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and that you are going to come out the other side and it's not going to be that way forever can lift some of the heaviness of those feelings. When I was going through the worst time of my life, one of the things that plagued me was thinking, am I always going to feel this way? Because it didn't feel like I was ever going to possibly feel any better. I couldn't see how I was ever going to be okay again. And that's when you start to feel really hopeless, and it starts to feel so daunting to think of always feeling that way. That's a really heavy load to be walking around with. But I promise you, it is just temporary. It's hard. It is painful. It is exhausting, but it is temporary. Whatever it is that you're going through or that you go through in the future, I promise you it will get better. And that time in your life that is so bleak and so all-consuming and so difficult, one day will just be a memory in your rearview mirror. Something else I wish I had known in my early 20s is that turning 30 is not like falling off of a cliff into obscurity. This is quite funny, but I used to have a genuine fear of turning 30. Like in my head, you turn 30 and immediately your life is over. Like no more happiness, no more joy, no more adventure, no more fun, no more doing exciting things. Just, it all ends. I just thought I would be this sad old person with no life. I mean, some Friday nights I do just sit in my PJs at like 6 p.m. and eat pizza and watch Netflix alone. But that's really more of an introvert thing than a 30-something thing. Anyway, I'm here to tell you that my 30s have been incredible so far. I have achieved so many things. I've been on so many adventures and I'm having a blast. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that as you get older, you become more self-confident, you have all of this experience to draw from, you feel more secure in your decisions, and you just go for it. I mean, your 20s are great, don't get me wrong, but they're a little bit erratic. Once you get to 30, everything starts to come into focus, and there's just a lot more purpose in what you're doing. There's more conviction there. I think we're so used to being told that your 20s are the best years of your life, like soak it in while you can. But don't panic, because based on my own experience and the conversations I've had with my friends who are also in their 30s, as well as people older than me, it just keeps getting better. The next thing I wish I had learned sooner was that people are going to be exactly who they are. And you're going to have so much more peace in your life when you stop expecting people to live up to the standards that you have set for who you expect them to be, and instead just accept them for who they are. Or don't. I remember this one incident I had a few years ago where a friend had acted in a way that was really hurtful to me, and I was telling my life coach about it, and my life coach turned to me and she said, "Oh wow, is that really out of character for that person?" And I was like, "No, she always acts this way. Blah, 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 blah. Let me count the ways that this person has continuously let me down." And then my life coach was like, "Okay, so that's who she is. Why are you so surprised and hurt and upset that she's showing up in the way that she's always showed up?" Mic drop. Am I right? I mean, we all go through our lives with this internal vision of how people should and shouldn't act. But the reality is we're all different, and there is nuance, and we all have good and bad in us. We all have different expectations from ourselves and others. Just because you would act in a certain way doesn't mean that everyone else has to. And expecting them to do things just because you think that that is right, or you think that that is how you would show up, does not make them a bad person. And ultimately, what you have to do is kind of ask yourself a question, which is, this is who that person is, and they're always going to be that way. Maybe they'll change, but your expectation has got to be that this is who they're going to continue to be, and they're going to keep doing this thing that has upset me or that bothers me. Am I going to just accept this person for who they are and stop waiting for them to change? Or is that too much for me? Am I going to take some distance and not have that person in my life anymore? Either of those decisions is totally fine. What's not okay is getting yourself angry and upset and worked up because someone is not fulfilling an idea that you have of who they should be, because otherwise the only person who's suffering is you, because you are the one who's getting upset and hurt and feeling let down all the time. This is not a sexy one, but my gosh, is it important, and that is to live below your means. Budgeting and understanding how to manage your money can seem like a really daunting task, especially when you are really young and maybe first setting out on your own, first having a budget to deal with, and especially if you grew up in a household where maybe your parents weren't particularly financially literate, which was my experience. It's a very difficult cycle to break because you don't know what to do, and also, like we were talking about earlier, it can seem really out of reach, almost like it's an exclusive club that only a select group of people get to be a part of, and they get to know how to manage their money and be financially responsible because they're rich and they're brought up this way, and the rest of us just have to muddle through and just try our best. And I get why it's so off-putting to so many people. It was off-putting to me for many years. Like, why even bother trying to learn how to manage my finances? I'm never going to be rich anyway, so does it apply to me? But the key thing that I wish I had known sooner before delving into anything else was simply to learn to live below my means. If you can do that, that is the main starting point. And it really doesn't matter if you are just scraping it by on your student loan, or if you are bringing in like £100,000 a year, you still need to live below your means. Don't get tempted to think, I really want to buy new shoes, can't afford them right now, but I'll put them on Klarna Pay. I'll stick them on my credit card. I shouldn't really splash out for the fancy face cream that I've seen that influencer using, but I feel like I need to treat myself. Don't buy things that you can't afford to pay for. It's not worth putting yourself into debt. It's not worth the stress of being financially stretched at the end of the month, waiting for your payday. And actually, the bigger you can make the gap between what you earn and what you spend, the better, because again, then you can start putting your money into savings. You've got a rainy day fund. You can start investing, because remember, the earlier you can do that, the more money you can make further down the line. And of course, I am fully aware that what I'm advocating for is not possible for some people in our current climate, in the cost of living crisis that we currently find ourselves in. There are people who have to choose between heating their homes and putting food on the table, and that is a completely different set of circumstances. I'm speaking to the people like former me who would just go out and buy unnecessary things just because she wanted them. Racking up debt, putting it on a credit card, leaving yourself with nothing left over at the end of the month because you want that instant gratification of just buying the things that you want to buy. I look back at my former self and I would shake her so hard because she had no respect for her money. She had no respect for her future self. Like, money would drop into my bank account and it would be like freaking supermarket sweep. I'm out here buying as much as I can as quickly as I can. Like as if the aim of the game is to spend every penny you have before the next payday hits. Live below your means. Try and get that gap between what you earn and what you spend to be as big as possible, because you never know what's around the corner, unfortunately. And having a safety net and having money set aside is so important if you can. Next, the arbitrary markers of success that we always hear people talking about are absolute BS, and just ignore them. I used to think that it's so funny, I used to think that I would be married by the age of 25 with a baby. I envisioned myself like with the house, white picket fence, like nice little car that I'd be driving, successful in my job, successful mother, just like, you know, got it all together. I thought that those were all of the things that I was supposed to have by the time I hit 30. And then instead, I moved overseas for a few years, I published a book, I traveled the world, I changed careers, I moved in with my parents, again, 3 separate times. I started a business, I called off an engagement. I have been a complete freaking hot mess by traditional standards of what you should be doing. And I've had the time of my life and I'm very happy. And I have friends who have babies and husbands and houses and they're very happy too. But life is not a series of tick box exercises. It's not paint by numbers. We're not all gonna end up with the same thing at the end. It's very much like, here's your blank canvas and here are your paints. Make whatever the heck you want with it. Life is precious. Don't waste yours chasing after someone else's dreams or someone else's version of what success looks like, because we're all different. And whether you want to chase, you know, an amazing career, or you want to start a family, or you want to travel the world, or you want to have your own business, or you want to like go live on the beach and sell coconuts, like whatever it is that you want to do, if you do that thing, then you are successful. If you find happiness in living your life the way that you want to live it, that is the epitome of success, regardless of what anyone else is doing or what anyone else thinks of it. We are all on different paths in this life. We are all different people, and you just need to do what is right for you. This next one is quite hard, but sometimes you won't get closure, and you just have to be okay with that, whether that is from a breakup or an incident that you just think, I have no idea what actually just happened there. Like, I've had that a few times in my life where I've had, like, I had a friendship completely fall apart out of the blue. A really close friend of mine just stopped talking to me, and I was driving myself absolutely insane trying to work out what happened, where did it go wrong, why is she acting this way, and I never got an answer to that question, and I just had to kind of move on with my life. You won't always get an explanation, you won't always get closure, you won't always be able to tie things in a neat little bow. That's really irritating, it is, but you need to be able to just accept that sometimes and move on. And I think a lot of that comes from having conviction in yourself, of just saying, okay, well, I did the best that I could in that situation, or I know that I tried my hardest. Or maybe you can turn around and say, hey, I know that I messed up in that situation, here's what I'm going to learn from it. Since I can't fix it this time retrospectively, here's what I'm going to carry forward with me moving on, so that I don't make that same mistake again. Or even if I do, because here's the thing, we are only human, and we do tend to make the same mistake a bunch of times before we truly learn the lesson. Even if you do make the same mistake again, make it a little bit better than you did the first time. Don't waste your life waiting for closure. Sometimes you have to make your own by just saying, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm moving on from this situation and I'm not looking back. And finally, number 10, my favorite life lesson of all is that you are enough just as you are. I used to think that a sense of fulfillment and happiness would come from achieving a specific goal. If only I was skinnier, I'd feel better about myself. If only I had more money, I'd feel more content. If only this, if only that, I'd get the promotion, I get the relationship, I get the size 6 jeans. If only I could have all of these things, my life would be perfect. If only I had all of these things, I would feel good about myself. I would be deserving. I would be happy. People would like me more. It doesn't work that way. You are enough just as you are. And when I say that, what I truly mean is that right now in this moment, wherever you are at in your life, whatever you look around, if it's a complete dumpster fire, it doesn't matter. Right now, the person you are, that is enough. You deserve to have love, respect, and happiness. You deserve to be treated well. You deserve to enjoy your life. You deserve to feel good about yourself. Now, not when you lose 5 pounds, not when you get a promotion, not when you marry Brad Pitt, I don't know. Stop waiting for outside factors to validate your worth. Your worth is internal, it comes from you. And when you start approaching your goals and things that you want to achieve from a place of knowing that you deserve happiness, you deserve to achieve that thing, rather than a hope that once you achieve that thing you'll feel better, you'll find that actually you find so much more joy in everything you do, and it's so much more fulfilling. Because working towards a goal with the intention that that goal will fix you or make you feel better about yourself or make you feel more confident or make you more likable, it's not going to do that. Nothing that you can do externally is going to be able to validate you internally. And so you just end up in this very frustrating cycle of chasing goals and thinking, why do I not feel better about myself? Why isn't this changing my life? True change comes from within, okay? It starts with just recognizing that no matter where you are enough. Take that forward with you in everything you do. And when you do that and you have that appreciation and your love for yourself, it's just everything changes. That was long, that was intense. But I hope you could take something really positive away from that, regardless of if you're in your 20s or if you're like 97. Do you know what would be fun actually? If anyone is still here listening to this after all the rambling I've done, go ahead in the comment section and just write what decade of your life you're in. And if you have like your big life lesson that you wish you could tell your younger self, what is it? Let's all start sharing our advice. We'll make it a really positive place in the comments. Please remember that you are enough, just as you are. I love you so much. And I'll see you soon, guys.